to pay for the phones. Where they went wrong was they were just looking at the federal grant solicitation. They didn't take into account that, at least here in North Carolina, we wanted to prioritize other things. We weren't going to let Homeland Security dollars be used for phones. We wanted to build the Viper network. We wanted to build radios and not push-to-talk phones. And so Nextel spent a lot of money on those workshops. They didn't get a lot of bang out of it, and that might be one reason why we don't have Nextel anymore. I don't know. Most of the grants coming from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security follow this block grant protocol where the grant makes a stop in your state capital. With discretionary money, it's funded at the discretion of the Cabinet Secretary in Washington. You apply to Washington. Washington has the final say on how the money can be used. That's it. Okay? So it's important to understand the difference. There's less bureaucracy to sort through with discretionary money. So pros and cons, again, we're just talking about the first key of government grants. With block grants, they take geography into account, so your state's guaranteed to receive something with block grants. Also, speaking as a state official, we like block grants because it enables us to slap compatibility requirements on what you're buying. With discretionary grants, Wake Forest and Dunn PD can buy whatever they want, and there's no requirement to buy things that are compatible. And we all know now, in a post 9/11 world, compatibility and interagency communication is really important. And so the states, of course, really like the block grants. But that second layer of bureaucracy can be really confusing. And if the governor and the state administering agency director chooses not to give a competitive grant application process, you don't even have an opportunity to say what you need. I was in my office, Highway Patrol headquarters, happily typing away, working on grants as best I could. One day we got 425 gas masks at our front door. What's this? Well, it's the Department of Homeland Security funding a new grant program through emergency management, and the folks at emergency management decided what state troopers really need are gas masks. Well, I mean, you know, every piece of equipment helps, I guess, but a gas mask is probably going to sit in the trunk of a trooper's car through the summer. The seals are probably going to fail after a couple summers, and we may never use them. Whereas had we been given an opportunity to weigh in, we would have asked for radios, because communications is something we use every single day in law enforcement. Lesson learned, and the process that emergency management has put in, where if you have a Homeland Security need for radios or whatever, you communicate that to your county emergency management officials. They communicate those needs to the domestic preparedness regions in North Carolina, the DIPPers. I always wanted to call them diapers, but the secretary didn't want to let me call them diapers. DIPPers, and then the DIPPers talk to the State Emergency Response Commission, which decides how to spend Homeland Security money. And that's, again, through that block grant program. And so now that process works pretty well. Discretionary grants. Great thing about discretionary grants, less bureaucracy. One application, one set of rules, you apply, it's either funded or it isn't, that's it. And that's less confusing. But it doesn't take geography into account. If the 10 best proposals come from the West Coast, that's where the money's going. See the difference? Okay. Also, with discretionary grants, you're less likely to have a relationship with the people who are making the funding because the decision makers don't reside in your state. And grants, like all things, depend heavily on relationships. Grant givers have great memories. They remember when you do things well, and they remember when you do things not so well. And so open and honest communication when you get a grant will get you out of, or get you through most issues that come up. So we've talked about block grants, and we've talked about discretionary grants. Who knows what an earmark is? Who can explain what an earmark is? Anybody? What's the first thing you think of when you say earmark? Go ahead, Neil. Go ahead. Oh, he's gonna. Okay.
I'm breathing. I like it.
Okay.
An earmark is when you go to your congressman, if we're talking a federal earmark,
Yep.
You go to your congressman and you get him to slip something in the budget that nobody else sees that sends the money directly to you, and you get $96,000.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a single line of text in the federal government that says Cleveland County Sheriff is going to get $100,000 for new kennels for their canine unit. What does Cleveland County think of that earmark? Hey, that's awesome. What do the folks in Wyoming and Montana and California think of that earmark? Oh, that's pork. That's just total wasteful spending. Keep in mind, one man's pork is another man's feast. What the feds would do with that earmark is they would turn it into a grant and they would assign it to a grant giving agency within the federal government, but Cleveland County would be the only agency eligible to apply for that particular grant. And so that's good work if you can get it, right? So, and we've had some success at that. So which way is better? Well, you know, learn how all three ways work to maximize your success. My objective is to help educate you about the different paths, and if you know about all three paths, hopefully you won't just get boxed into one revenue stream. Governor's Crime Commission is great. They fund every year. U.S. Department of Justice isn't going anywhere, and yes, they've had cutbacks, but they still give grant money every year. But that's not the only avenue available to you. So learn about these other avenues to maximize your success. Let's see. So to get an earmark, Neil mentioned go to your congressman. If we're not letting the members of Congress know about our successes, about our needs, is it their fault that they're not funding them? Just a little thought to consider. These guys are inundated with interest groups asking for money. Most of them aren't government. I like to suggest that if you find the district office director of your congressional delegation, not necessarily the actual member, but the district office director who's in your district, won't require a trip to Washington, and just start meeting with that person, whoever it is, and say, you know, I'm with Cleveland County Sheriff. We've had a lot of success with our canine unit. We have these needs for securing and maintaining the chain of evidence in our evidence control room. We'd be able to accomplish so much more if we just had this little piece that we're missing. And the first meeting with the district office director, they're going to say, well, we've had a lot of earmark requests. You know, we'll try to get something in. We'd like to hear about this in March in time for to get started for the new federal fiscal year. What are they doing when they do that? Stalling? Well, I like to explain it as they're playing the expectations game. They're trying to underpromise and overdeliver. So don't be discouraged if you talk with somebody in a district office like that, and that's how the conversation goes. But be sure that they are fully briefed on that little piece that you're missing, that you could do great things with if you had just that little piece, just a one-time grant, maybe some equipment, maybe some capital funding for a new storage facility. That one piece is what you need. I did my graduate work at NC State, go Wolfpack, and I had a professor there that described politics as the peaceful struggle over limited resources. We don't go into city council chambers with weapons drawn saying, give me 5 new positions. It's a peaceful process. And we're very fortunate, I think, to have that process at our available to us. But we don't always agree with the decisions. But that's okay. We can have disagreements. We just need to kind of embrace the fact that all politicians, regardless of shape or stripe, want to improve our quality of life. They just disagree on how to get there. But if we're not letting them know exactly what we're doing and what we need, I think some of the responsibility for the cutbacks falls on us. A little bit of history. During the 1990s, the White House was widely supportive of federal grant programs that kept the decisions in Washington. So these are discretionary money. President Clinton was in the White House, and part of his campaign was, we're going to put 100,000 new officers on the streets, and we're going to do it through this COPS office, and we're going to send the money directly to local agencies. And we're going to completely bypass the states. Billions and billions and billions of dollars going to the states, to law enforcement agencies for positions and equipment that generally save agencies time that they could use to devote to proactive policing, interacting proactively with business groups and church groups and citizen groups and that sort of thing. The whole community policing thing. So lots and lots of discretionary grants during the Clinton administration. Then President George W. Bush was elected, and the National Governors Association approached President Bush, said, you know, all this money is coming to our states, and we don't have any control over it, we don't have any say over it. How'd the governors feel about that? Well, it depends on your governor. Some governors would say, hey, that money's doing a lot of good, that's great, we'll take it any way we can. But the National Governors Association said, you know, we really need to have more control over this funding that's coming to our state so that we can promote compatibility and other things. And so as a result of those discussions, and then 9/11, we have the Department of Homeland Security. There are a few exceptions, but most of the funding that comes from the Department of Homeland Security is funneled through your state emergency management agency. So then when President Obama was elected, there was an effort to try to fund everything. Discretionary grants, block grants, earmarks, let's just get the money out and spend, spend, spend. What happened then? Well, I started giving presentations on grants in about 2002, and from 2002 through 2013, I would always give the speech that the money is there, it just changes labels. Every time we have a new president, you're going to have a new program, a new label, but it's the same money, because a new president, whoever he is going to want to say it was my program that solved your problems. And so that's why President George W. Bush, in his proposal to Congress, would zero out the budget for the COPS office every year. Not that he didn't like law enforcement, he just wanted to fund it a different way so that he could claim credit for his program was the one that solved your budget needs. Well, then the sequester of 2013 hit, and now there really is fewer funds. There really are fewer funds available. And so the federal funding levels really have dropped off a little bit in Congress. The budget really is being scaled back. I have a website here, congress.gov, just to show you. Sometimes we learn about grants kind of too late to do anything about it. We get the problem where we get this grant application, it's due in 3 days, requires 3 months of planning. Chief says get it done. One way to head that off is just go to congress.gov, and there's this link right here that says appropriations. And this lists the appropriation. You know, each committee in Congress funds a group of federal agencies. And the one that funds the U.S. Department of Justice is this Commerce, Justice, Science Committee. And you can read what they're planning on funding. And there's a nice little summary right here. So Commerce, State, and Justice combined looks like $62 billion, give or take. And then they have a process in Congress where they scale a little bit back for staff. And so it ends up being around 61.2 or something like that. But you can go to each section, like this is Commerce right here, and then you can go down to the Justice section. Let's see, Justice. Justice, there we go. And the committee recommends a total of 28 billion for US DOJ. Now that includes the budget for 100,000 attorneys. But, you know, it didn't take me very long to look that up. So, you know, congress.gov, appropriations, and then go to whatever committee you're interested in. And you can kind of head off that issue of finding out too late in the stream by going to that site. Let's see. Questions about politics. Anybody know what chopping block means? This is a trick question. Chopping block is just when, you know, in the budget writing process, the executive branch of government releases a proposed budget, and then the legislative branch of government edits the budget, passes a budget, and then sends it back to the executive for signature or veto. If it's not in the original proposed budget of the executive branch, it's on the chopping block, but that doesn't guarantee it's going to be eliminated. The COPS office is a great example. 8 years in a row, President George W. Bush zeroed out the funding. He defunded the cops office in his proposed budget every year because he wanted that money to go to Homeland Security to provide for more Homeland Security dollars. Well, USDOJ didn't really like that, obviously, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police lobbied hard to keep cops office intact. Local chiefs who are getting these funds directly from Washington, completely bypassing the state, they really like that. They lobbied Congress, and the cops office exists today. So when you hear chopping block, just don't think it's guaranteed to go away. So that's 2 keys of government grants. Learn the different types of programs, block, discretionary, earmark, and politics. Agency intel has become a lot easier with the internet. I don't know how we did this before the internet, but you can go to a funding source's website and just look at what's important to them, look at their mission and goals. It's important to you that if you're going to ask somebody for a grant, that your project furthers their mission. It's all about selling them on the idea that they can promote the greater good if they invest in your project. It's not just about, we're broke, help us out. It's about, if you fund this project, here's the great things that you can do. All right. So if I'm applying for a grant for radars, I love telling my folks, thanks to me, the Highway Patrol has the best radars money can buy. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate that. All my friends outside law enforcement really like that. If I'm applying for radars to the Department of Homeland Security, I'm going to point out that domestic terrorists like Timothy McVeigh were caught because of minor traffic violations, and if we fund these radars, we'll have a better shot of catching very bad people. If I'm applying for the same equipment to the Department of Justice, I'm going to say speeding is an infraction and punishable by, all sorts of fines and other things. And so to promote crime prevention, please fund these radars. If I'm sending the grant off to the Department of Transportation, I'm going to say the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has said that speeding is a prevalent collision in crime, prevalent cause of crashes, and